Man, isn't Punch-Out just awesome? I mean, like, just a really swell game overall. Isn't it great in every way? From the music, to the gameplay, to the way it basically is just a puzzle game in disguise. Everything about it just reeks fun. There's almost no flaws in its design. Sure, it can feel slow at times, but otherwise it's a fantastic experience from start to finish. It's a classic NES title that withstands the test of time no matter how much scrutiny it's put under, which makes it all the more weird how I've never played it. Yeah, aside from the Animal Crossing emulator and a few fights, I've never been able to play Punch-Out in its entirety. Something about it just kind of put me off as a kid. Maybe it was too boring for me. I don't know, I think I have ADHD or something, which might explain why it takes so long for me to finish these videos. But yeah, pretty boring to look at. Probably boring to play if you're like 10 years old. I had an NES growing up, but we only had like 5 or 6 games for it. I played a lot of Mario as a kid, but Zelda was more to my liking. A game about a dude punching dudes wasn't too appealing to me until I got older. But it wasn't Punch-Out that I got into. No, again, that shit's boring. Look at it. Punch-Out! Yeah! You know what's not boring? The sequel. That's right, Punch-Out garnered enough success to warrant a sequel, though not on the same hardware. Super Punch-Out was released in 1994, which makes it older than me. Not to say that I'm particularly young, just that Super Punch-Out is pretty old now. Truth be told, I never actually played it on the SNES. My first experience with this game was in Fight Night Round 2 on the GameCube. After beating the story mode, you unlock Super Punch-Out as a bonus, and despite the horrible D-pad on the GameCube controller, I somehow managed to beat Super Punch-Out on the Fight Night Round 2 emulator. Does it still hold up? Well, yeah. Duh. Obviously, look at it. Shit's fun. But I feel like I can explain it a bit better than that. So here's why you should play Super Punch-Out. Ding, ding, ding. First off, let's talk about the story. You play as Little Mac, who looks significantly different from the last iteration of Little Mac. Perhaps Little Mac is just a name given to any up-and-coming rookie, or maybe Little Mac started listening to Third Eye Blind and dyed his hair. He got sick of chasing the guy who stole his bike in the last game, and now he's looking to become the best boxer around. Again, it wasn't enough that you beat the shit out of Mike Tyson. Now you have to beat the shit out of 16 other random dudes who aren't as strong or well built as Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson, more like Mike Tyson, because I have an interview I need to go to explain these racially charged jokes in this last paragraph. That's the entirety of the story. You're a little guy trying to be the best. That's it. Super Punch-Out, much like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, link in description. Oh, fuck. Is an arcade experience, but unlike Tony Hawk's Pro Filator, Super Punch-Out doesn't have any Goldfinger songs in it or any sick half pipes you can do 1080s on. But yeah, arcade-like. It has shorter bouts of gameplay. It's surrounded by a timer, a score system. Yeah, the entirety of the game would feel at home in a cabinet, and I'm sure somebody homebrewed that at some point. You use the directional pad and 3 buttons to fight, and that's all she wrote. Simplicity is the key, and much like Little Mac's affinity for punching minorities, I'd have to say that there aren't many problems here. It's all very intuitive. It feels natural, tapping left and right to try and dodge incoming punches, or hitting down so you can duck out of the way of a swing. Even aiming towards the head of an opponent is smooth, since the player is most likely going to push upwards to try and achieve this anyway. It all feels very natural and works perfectly as intended, even if, once in a while, your fat fucking finger is going to slip to the side and push left when you wanted to push up. Shit's annoying, but it's entirely your fault, just like how rich Jeff Bezos is. Don't pretend you don't still use Amazon to buy headphones, you piece of shit. Just use B&H, you fucking loser. You can also block incoming punches if you know where your opponent is aiming. For example, holding up protects your face, and not pressing the D-pad protects your body. You have to fight yourself not to dodge in order to block your body. It's great. It's a useful mechanic, but I don't think anyone used it because it's safer to try and dodge than it is to block. Blocking puts Mac in a position for a retaliatory punch, one that might not be possible if you're busy dodging out of the way. It's also the only way to stop longer flurries of punches from opponents like Neck Bruiser. There's a button for left jab and a button for right jab, which are your basic attacks in this game. Either you swing left or right. While it's not the most complex thing in the world, it's more than able to get the job done in terms of challenge. It's not just about how you attack, it's a combination of how and when. Opponents leave their guard down at certain points. When they're readying for a punch, they're open for a sucker punch. If they're right about to punch, you can hit them and stun them as a result. The system works wonders in keeping gameplay refreshing and replayable. Some opponents in later circuits also require the player to alternate their punches too, combined with the fact that you could only hit them a certain way with your first punch. Most early opponents can be hit in any way to start a combo, so player is going to get used to this, and you're going to have to fight muscle memory to not do that in later fights. Gabby J is your first opponent and acts as a second tutorial. There's a real tutorial if you wait on the start screen for 10 seconds or so, but I mean, it's long and boring. He's open at most times to all sorts of abuse, body blows, jabs to the head, stuns, flurries, everything. It's the easiest fight in the game for a reason. You're just starting out and he's here to show you the ropes, which is the first time that metaphor has been used accurately, by the way. He's a punching bag that the player is allowed to wail on. This teaches you what jabs are, what your power punches are, and how a round works in the game. The game is structured in 4 circuits, starting at the easiest and ending at the hardest, obviously. Each circuit contains 4 opponents, starting at the easiest and ending at the hardest. Oh, actually, the 4th circuit is supposed to be a surprise, but I kind of ruined it, like the ending of Castaway when Tom Hanks fucks the volleyball. Either way, Little Mac challenges each circuit, and this leads to gameplay. The story is mostly implied. There isn't a text dump at the start of the game, or anything, telling you what's going on. Not like there needed to be. You're a dude who boxes, go box some dudes. Like, do you really need a 10-page backstory on how Little Mac ended up here? No, you don't. Just go punch some shit. I don't know. Aside from jabs, you also have this little meter at the bottom. It fills up when you land successful jabs and depletes when you get hit. When the meter fills up, you're able to use your super punch, or whatever it's called. Tapping the buttons will result in Little Mac swinging a flurry of alternating punches, while holding the button makes him throw a haymaker. These 2 types of super punches can also be aimed with the D-pad, upwards toward the head or neutral towards the body. There's a lot of minutia when it comes to Super Punch-Out, and I'll try to bring up the occasional tidbit of information regarding it, but honestly all you need to know is that you can either punch left, right, or throw 2 different super punches. Each opponent is greatly different, and this is awesome. While there are some reskins, more than you'd think, everyone has a different fighting style or gimmick. Bear Hugger can't be punched in the stomach. Mr. Sandman needs to be knocked down 3 times. He can't be KO'd, he can only be TKO'd, etc. The game even gives you a little info screen for each fighter before you fight them, including a little bit of dialogue, just like the first game. But unlike the first game, each fight only lasts for 3 minutes. If you can't knock out your opponent within that timer, you lose. It kind of sucks and was later rectified in Punch-Out. That is, Punch-Out for the Wii, not Punch-Out for the NES. But 3 minutes is the perfect amount of time for these bouts. It's a major challenge for the player to knock out some of these later fighters within 3 minutes, and is where a good portion of the challenge comes from. If you can't figure out how to open the other fighters' defenses up, then you're going to lose. It's just a matter of how easy it is to do that. Most of the challenge in the early game comes from seeing how fast you can drop these boxers, but the further you go, the harder it gets. There's a real challenge curve with the game. It doesn't coddle the player. I can see all types of players dropping to the 4th or 8th boxer. I mean, they're by no means pushovers, and provide an excellent challenge, even if you know their tells. Man, I haven't seen anything this well programmed since Temple OS. What's even better is how the game defeated racism. All the boxers are from all around the world. Look, yay! Inclusion. Even if all the sneaky assholes are from China, I mean, that's alright with me. I joke, but Japan sure doesn't like China, do they? Racism aside, that is, a side of racism with my fried chicken, please. Racism aside, I'd have to say the boxers are entertaining characters in their own right, even if the Mexican wrestler spits in your face and the Irishman cheats with his grapples. Wait a minute, Arian? Nintendo, what the fuck? Every boxer will be defeated by learning their tells and counterattacking appropriately. You can get the upper hand on a boxer by hitting him right before he hits you, landing a few extra punches in retaliation. Retaliation like when my boss at Walmart made me work extra hard because I called her a lazy bitch. If you hit them enough times within a certain hidden time limit, you'll put them in a daze. Dazed boxers can be abused just a little bit more, and if you're good at your timing, you can even down them in a single punch. Even if you don't land that punch, chances are you'll have put a sizable dent in their health bar anyway. Even the toughest boxers can be dazed, and it feels really great to do so. If you're able to down them when they're dazed, it will even take them a little longer to stand back up, or knock them out completely without that TKO. This is a great reward for a player who has learned their attacks and attack patterns and can react accordingly. It's thoroughly challenging to land a few of these counter punches, and it feels amazing when you do. While they're down, you can even mash buttons to try and regain health, which is another incentive to daze them beforehand. You get a little bit more time to do that. As you recover, you might also fill up your fury gauge, which is like... Okay, so it's like... Little Mac seems to get angrier the more punches he lands. The angrier he gets, the faster he throws punches and dodges. It's a simple mechanic and spices up gameplay suitably. It's basically like your heat meter from Yakuza, in that it depletes if you don't lay on the abuse enough, and even then it depletes after a set amount of time anyway. So you'd better make the most of it while you can. You can also bring up the gauge by mashing buttons after downing your opponent, like I said. This also recovers your health and is incredibly fun to do. What really makes this game great is how fast it gets, and how good it feels to punch the shit out of someone. But if you're too cocky or too panicked, it can easily come back to bite you. A lot of the later boxers have fake tells and delayed tells, meaning you will act on your impulses to dodge or weave and result in you getting your shit rocked. Super Punch-Out is happy to punish the player for their weaknesses. Once you completed the first circuit, the game knows that you know how to play the game. The second circuit tests your memory while the third tests your endurance. A lot of the later fights get fairly difficult, but the curve is even and fair. When I first played this game, I got my shit rocked, but now I can beat the game in little over an hour. Sure, a good chunk of Punch-Out is memorizing certain patterns, but the rest of the game is reaction time and skills with your jabs and super punches. You can blaze through the campaign without too much problem, but most of the fun comes from seeing how fast you can down these boxers. What's great about this game is how good it feels to bury your knuckles in your opponent. Each punch has a satisfying thud sound, and when it lands, it's just awesome. Also, because your Haymaker and Flurry Punch are slightly delayed, it feels more gratifying when you land it. You might even take a big chunk of health out of the other boxer while you're at it, or hell, down them with a few well-placed flurries. Boxing is great and the art style is appealing, but the real problem comes from the fact that Minneapolis is still on fire. The game is still too short. You can cook like 2 pizzas before finishing this game. It's going to take the average player like 4 hours to beat, sure, and maybe 6 hours to master, but once you've mastered it, you can beat every boxer within an hour. Sure, you can get by on simply downing the other boxer 3 times, but the satisfaction factor comes from seeing how fast Little Mac can bully someone into committing suicide. Knocking out his opponent. A player can experiment on when they're landing jabs, or ducking, or dodging, and try to find little secret ways to dizzy your opponent, or maybe get a knockout instead of a technical knockout. Routing the game can also be a blast, and luckily they let you practice on boxers with a time attack mode. That way you don't have to fight 3 boxers just to get a chance at punching Bald Bull during his rush. God damn it. Oh yeah, all the boxers have different personalities. Personalities like I'm gonna kick your shit in and Cosby reference. Everyone is unique and likable. It's hard to hate these guys. They're also silly and fun to fight. Even the intentionally intimidating final boss is an interesting character because he doesn't even speak to Little Mac until he's beaten you at least once. And even then, he only says like a few words. A lot of life has been added to the game from the first. The announcer now mentions who you're fighting right before the bell rings.
Ball Bull!
The game is tuned more tightly, it feels a lot faster, and it feels like you aren't taking so long with these fights. They last 3 minutes at most now, so you're not gonna go 8 rounds with Mike Tyson. You're gonna go 1. And hey, you even get to hear what all these boxers have to say to Little Mac once you finish the final circuit, or beat the game, I guess. That's a neat touch. Some of these are funny, some of these give you hints like, I can be down to 10 seconds, and some are just congratulations for beating the game. It's a great feeling once you finally triumph over the last circuit. A lot of these special fights are extremely hard compared to the first 3 circuits. It's rewarding, it's gratifying, and it makes me want to play the game all over again. At the end, it even tells you your win-loss ratio, which is a neat touch. I like it. Start to finish, the game is an entertaining romp and deserves praise. Each fight is tightly designed and well made. No expenses were spared in making Super Punch-Out. They already had the template for success with the first Punch-Out, and it feels like they enhanced every element of the game. Attacks are better telegraphed, but harder to react to. Super Punches have not only been tuned up, but there's a whole new form of Super Punch with the flurry, and the star system has been ditched in favor of the charging bar. The graphics have been noticeably upgraded so the boxers look like real characters and not some poorly stitched together dots on the screen. Not only that, but the game got a jacked up soundtrack to match. These songs are a perfect fit for a game about boxing. Each boxer gets their own intro track that plays right before you fight them. There's plenty of high energy tracks that get you pumped up and ready to fight. Part of me wishes that some of these songs had made it into the actual fights, since the minute that bell is done ringing, it's back to basic fight song. Fight! I'm not saying they're bad songs, but variety is the spice of life and repetition makes me want to gag. I should probably mention there are 4 fight songs, 1 for each circuit, but there are 16 boxer songs, and honestly I would have just preferred if those had played instead. The 4th circuit is unlocked by beating the first 3 circuits without any losses. I suppose it's fitting then that it has the best music. And the toughest fights. They're going to test your mettle with these 4 bouts. Each one is significantly harder from the last, starting with a boxer that won't let you hit his face at all. It's tough, but if you manage to land a jab on his noggin, he'll get really angry and let his guard down, but at the same time attack you with more aggression. The next fighter is another sneaky Chinese dude who is fucking cheating with that cane. The game isn't entirely about remembering a pattern. The boxers don't do the exact same thing from start to finish, no matter what. It's more like they telegraph their attacks instead. So if a fighter does this, that means they're about to follow up with that. After that are the 2 tough, no gimmick fights. Well, not mini gimmicks, at least. These 2 boxers can disable one of Little Mac's hands for a brief time during the fight if they land this attack, and that attack happens if you try to hit them while they're blocking. It's a unique and great idea, especially since the last fighters will dodge jabs if you don't swing your correct fists at them. It's a short game, but perfect in length. It doesn't overstay its welcome. 16 fighters is more than enough for me, and I'm happy with what I got. Though part of me wishes there was a 5th circuit. I know time was better spent on making the 4 circuits that we got especially impactful. Not a single ounce of effort was wasted, and it shows fully in gameplay. Super Punch-Out is a fantastic game from start to finish, and you'd be doing yourself a disservice to not give it a try. Pick up a used copy or maybe buy it on the eShop. Is Super Punch-Out worth a play? Duh. Yes. Obviously. You just got done with a whole video telling you why it's fun to play and that you should be playing it right now. Even if you're working like an 80-hour week, you can sit down with a game and have a blast for a bit. It's colorful, it's fun, it's a great soundtrack to jam the fuck out to. What, it isn't enough that the game is fun and well programmed? Go play it right now. It's a short game. It won't even take that long. What are you doing? It's one of those rare sports type games that can be enjoyed by anyone, even big nerds like you, and is absolutely free if you don't pay for it. Besides, what else are you gonna do with your life right now? Fucking wasting time watching a YouTube video and shit. Go get a job.
Knockout! Pizza cake!